Is NVIDIA got the world semiconductor currency?
Does it have the world semiconductor what?
In other words, okay, I'm getting a lot of pushback from my like of Jensen Huang, saying he's really a globalist. That's not what we want. I'm saying that if everything is based on his chips, we are a new kind of reserve currency. And it's kind of exciting. It's something Jensen's
NVIDIA's GPU is the new dollar?
New semiconductor. It's another thing that we're great at. That's Jensen.
You need dollars to buy them.
Exactly. And Jensen, and you're going to build. See, a lot of this is what's written on. That's what are they going to build on? What's written on? And if you have to write on NVIDIA, David, instead of Huawei, the Chinese could end up being the pitiful, helpless giant.
They could, and now they're allowing, obviously, NVIDIA chips to be sold into that market again. That was a big move. Moving the stock.
But we didn't even talk about what Tesla has to do in order to get chips by going to Samsung.
Samsung, they're going to. Yeah, that said, I don't. Listen, it's always hard to judge what's happening in China with clarity.
Right.
But they do seem to be moving very quickly in terms of their ability to. They're not going to match NVIDIA. No way. They're not going to match NVIDIA.
Did you see? She said
robots, cars, and AI, Jim. They are. And obviously, in certain areas, they far surpass us. Solar, batteries, things of that nature. So you can't dismiss them in any way. But to your point, and the point that I think Jensen made is, wouldn't it be better if we were in the market rather than out of it and allow them to continue to innovate so they equal, if not exceed us at some point?
Right, and people feel that, how could Jensen said, why would they use us for the military? I mean, we know what they're going to be doing with the chips.
Right.
Look, I know there are people hardcore fight this decision, Carl. They fight. But in the end, I agree with Jensen. Not that it's hard to do since he's so brilliant. But, yeah, you want everything written on us. You want us to be the only guys in town, because that would be great.
Back to the larger issue of CapEx. So Alphabet increased its CapEx by $10 billion.
And gleefully.
75 to 85. And obviously some of that is going to pay for those chips that you're discussing.
But Gemini's working.
What are we going to see from Meta? What are we going to see from Amazon? Do you expect similar increases or maintain?
They have to, because it turns out that what is needed is speed. That's why, by the way, Jensen likes quantum. What's needed is speed. I mean, Carl, I go on all these all the time, and some of them are just so eager to please. They'll say, hey, I'll say, tell me how bad this quarter was, and they'll find how bad it is. I think a lot of this is they don't have the ability to be able to scrub as much as they like, and that's the weakness with the systems. You need to go faster. If they go faster, they can include more. They need to make more deals. They scrape the wrong stuff. Scrape the journal. Jesus, scrape the Times.
Well, there are three Mag 7 names that are up 20 for the year: NVIDIA, Microsoft, and Meta.
NVIDIA, new high, I think.
Yeah, Jeffrey says this is a nice problem to have. Their H20 AI chip for China cannot satisfy the demand for it. They believe NVIDIA has up to 900,000 H20s, but China wants 1.8 million of them at 175. NVIDIA was at a new high today.
A nice position to be in, I'd say. New high. Thanks, Lauren.
Charles, this is one of yours that you're watching.
Yeah, you know what? One thing we talk about a lot in investing is pricing power, right? So one of the headlines this morning is AMD increases the prices of its M350X chip by 40%. Think about that, right? I mean, that's what moves your stock the way AMD is moving. And AMD, I remember years ago when AMD was going against Intel, Intel used to crush them like a bug over and over and over again. And now AMD might be the only real legitimate rival to NVIDIA. I mean, they're in their shadows, but they are gaining big time. And you can see the stock. Again, you can increase your prices to this degree. This is organic demand. This is not tariff-related demand. This is like the world is in a race, and they consider this chip to be so good that they're willing to pay 40% more.
That's amazing. 43%. You'd be richer if you had bought AMD at the beginning of the year.
Yeah.
So that's remarkable.
You come to us with a pairs trade, Jeff.
I did, and this is just an explosive week. We have 4 of the Mag 7 names: Amazon, Apple, Microsoft, and Meta, of course. But I'm really focused on a pairs trade. I want to sell NVIDIA. I know it sounds crazy, Melissa, but NVIDIA at a new all-time high of $175. I want to sell NVIDIA, take profits. And the reason is because of the overconcentration. If you see the NASDAQ, we've talked about the NASDAQ. Right now, it's on its 65th day of being above its 20-day moving average. So a little long in the tooth, but this is momentum. This is the V-shaped recovery. So by selling NVIDIA, I want to buy Apple, nearly the laggard. Tesla is just below Apple in the Mag 7. So I think there's an opportunity. If you want to short NVIDIA, this is not for you. You will have a very hard time shorting NVIDIA, but there's an opportunity to either sell, trim position. I blindly bought NVIDIA, Melissa, back in April at $92, so I'm taking profits. You could also sell the 175 call going out a month for about $6. So I think you have to be considerate here, and there is going to be a vulnerability as you see over concentration in NVIDIA.
Yeah, I think what's interesting about this trade, Jeff, is that you're focusing in on the idiosyncratic nature of the Apple story, in that you're not betting necessarily that the AI trade or the AI story falls apart. You're just betting that Apple will get things a little bit more right going forward.
You're absolutely right. They have to say something. They have to capture AI somehow, some way. They're not a hyperscaler, so they don't need to spend the money, but they need to deliver something to provide some optimism. We're seeing Apple down about 17.5% from its all-time high, so there's an opportunity for Apple to run back up to 230, but it has to be tangible. We need something AI, Melissa. You're right.
Yeah, but you're not paying. It's not cheap. Apple's not cheap here.
Correct. It's not, but I think if you look at the Mag 7, look at the Mag 7. It's a 62% market cap concentration in the NASDAQ 100. It's about 35% as a collective Mag 7 in the S&P 500. So Apple being the laggard, we have to remember, Melissa, that Apple, I know it's had a rough year, but the last couple of years it has been producing. It's been the cash cow, and it would be interesting to see if they make some type of purchase potentially in AI. It'd be the biggest purchase since Beats was just $3 billion.
Right.
I guess this sort of open-endedness of just where it could go helps explain the way the overall market right now is willing to pay a premium and give credit to both the big companies that are spending the tens of billions of dollars a year on these data centers and put the same multiple on NVIDIA that's collecting the money. I mean, it's kind of an amazing thing for while it lasts.
Yeah, it is bananas. I think if you go to the heart of Amodei's story, and really many of these lab story, you see why this is happening. And again, it goes to this idea of the scaling law, which isn't really a law. It's just an observation that you put more compute, you get better results. And we've seen some better results from companies like XAI with their Grok model, which did very well on the benchmarks despite having a slow start. They came to the game late, but they built massive data centers with lots of GPUs, and they were able to train a competitive model. So the thinking here is if you have people who've been working on this for a long time, and you add that scale, so they have the scale, they have the efficiency, the better algorithms, how smart can that get? And I think the entire market and the entire AI industry is saying, well, we're going to find out. We're going to find out.
We're going to overshoot at some point, maybe, but not yet, I suppose.
I think there's a potential for some investors to get wiped out here because the numbers are so big. On the other hand, if it goes the way that they're hoping, then these companies will be phenomenally valuable.
Yeah, and to date, it's been mostly financed out of spare cash, so we'll see how it goes. Alex, great stuff. Appreciate it.
Thanks so much.
All right, I hope you're all doing great today. NVIDIA reached a new all-time high today and finished the day nearly 1.9% higher. Let's quickly go over NVIDIA's large clients that are reporting earnings this week. We have Meta and Microsoft on Wednesday, followed by Amazon on Thursday. As for Meta, I fully expect the company to raise their CapEx guidance when they report earnings, given the massive spend on A-list AI talent and recent announcements that the company plans to build multiple multi-gigawatt data centers and spend hundreds of billions of dollars on compute build-out in the coming years. Keep in mind that a single 1 gigawatt data center leads to tens of billions of dollars in revenue for NVIDIA, and Meta wants to build multiple multi-gigawatt clusters. As for Microsoft, their CapEx guidance will be more important than usual because they will be giving guidance for their fiscal 2026. I have a few quick thoughts on Microsoft. First, I think Microsoft is likely to report having spent more money on CapEx in fiscal Q4 than what market participants are expecting. A lot of market participants think that Microsoft's CapEx guidance sits at $80 billion for fiscal 2025. But there was a small detail on Microsoft's last earnings call that largely went unnoticed. On that earnings call, the CFO said that CapEx would increase sequentially for the fiscal fourth quarter, on the very low end of the range that would bring total CapEx for fiscal 2025 up to $85.5 billion, which is higher than the $80 billion that many market participants are expecting. I think Microsoft is likely to have spent more during the quarter than what most people are expecting. As for Microsoft's fiscal 2026 CapEx guidance, it is likely to be nuanced. This is because Microsoft leadership told us on the last two earnings calls that CapEx spending would shift away from the external costs of the data centers, from things like land, construction, utilities, etc., and that the mix of CapEx spending would shift more towards short-lived assets inside of the data center, such as CPUs and GPUs. That's good news for NVIDIA, but it also means that total CapEx guidance could be lower than it otherwise would be, and that could garner a negative initial reaction from market participants. So be prepared for that just in case. Regardless of what Microsoft's total CapEx number is, I think we will see increased spending on NVIDIA's products inside the data center, as Microsoft leadership previously indicated. Additionally, today, Satya posted on X announcing that Microsoft has added Copilot mode to Edge. To me, this is yet another indication that Microsoft's spending on NVIDIA's products will continue to increase. As for Amazon, I don't have very much visibility on them this earnings season, but I think we're likely to get strong CapEx numbers given the strong AI demand and competition that we've seen. On the company's last earnings call, CEO Andy Jassy told us that as soon as new AI capacity is put in, it gets consumed. That bodes well for NVIDIA. And now, let's see what commentary we get about CapEx and AI demand on the earnings call this Thursday. Something else I want to talk about is the news that AMD is raising prices for its MI350. This bodes well for AMD's conviction that the MI350 can compete with NVIDIA's Blackwell GPU, and raising prices is of course very good news for AMD. Ironically, I think it's also positive for NVIDIA, as the higher prices will likely result in even more customers choosing to go with NVIDIA systems. As a reminder, NVIDIA develops entire AI systems, innovating at every component of the stack, not just the chip. NVIDIA's competitive moat across both hardware and software is still very much intact, even if another company develops a faster GPU than NVIDIA's. At the same time, there's plenty of room in this market for both NVIDIA and AMD to succeed along with others. There's so much demand, and the AI pie is big enough for all of these companies to be successful. Something else to be aware of is the upcoming sector-specific tariffs. The president recently spoke about pharmaceutical tariffs, indicating that they will likely be announced in the very near future. I would expect semiconductor tariffs to be announced shortly thereafter. I want to mention two important things on this topic. First, if semiconductor tariffs are announced and NVIDIA stock trades lower on the news, do not panic. I would expect such a reaction to be a short-term negative reaction that does not severely impact NVIDIA's long-term future. And secondly, if semiconductor tariffs are announced, there would likely be a grace period before they actually go into effect to allow companies to onshore more production to the US. I think this is likely because recently when speaking about pharmaceutical tariffs, the president said companies will be given a grace period, possibly a year or more, to move production to the United States. And so I would expect there to be some sort of grace period for semiconductor companies as well before any semiconductor tariffs go into effect. NVIDIA has been working with partners such as TSMC and Foxconn to aggressively onshore manufacturing to the US. And Blackwell is already being produced at TSMC's Arizona facility. And so I think that even if semiconductor tariffs cause a short-term negative reaction in the stock, I don't think it will have a sizable impact on NVIDIA's long-term trajectory. I continue to be bullish on the long-term future of NVIDIA. I seriously think this company has a lot of runway ahead of it. Think about this. We recently saw an explosion of AI demand due to reasoning models and inference. I think another explosion of demand is likely to happen in the near future as AI agents are really just starting to be introduced mainstream. I think we will see another surge in compute demand similar to what we saw with the launch of advanced reasoning models. I think that oncoming wave of demand will likely extend well into 2026, and I think 2026 will be yet another growth year for NVIDIA. I also think NVIDIA will report very strong Q3 and Q4 numbers given the rapid production ramp of Blackwell and the launch of Blackwell Ultra. Blackwell Ultra has launched and production should really start to ramp in August and September. Then next year in 2026, we have NVIDIA's next generation Vera Rubin. The Vera CPU will be NVIDIA's first custom CPU, containing 88 NVIDIA Olympus cores custom designed to work in tandem with NVIDIA GPUs. And a single Kyber rack will be able to hold 576 Rubin GPUs, 8 times as many as the current Blackwell systems. We have a clear data center product roadmap extending into 2028. Jensen believes the world's computing capex will reach $1 trillion annually by 2030. NVIDIA maintains a strong competitive moat stretching across the entire stack, both hardware and software. NVIDIA's CUDA software is a massive advantage for NVIDIA, and it does not get enough attention. If developers build on CUDA, they want to remain on CUDA, and that is extremely beneficial to NVIDIA, keeping customers within its ecosystem. NVIDIA has massive sovereign AI deals for large-scale data centers around the world, and I think we're likely to get news about more sovereign AI deals in the future, especially after the White House's AI action plan that was revealed last week. Under the plan, the US government will actively work to export full-stack AI technology packages around the world to the United States allies. This, of course, includes NVIDIA's products. The AI Summit in Washington last week featured the CEOs of many important companies. Those who spoke at the summit included Jensen Huang, Lisa Su, and the CEO of MP Materials. I recently made a video about MP Materials, and I seriously encourage you to watch it in its entirety. This company's product will be central to the oncoming wave of physical AI, and I think there's a lot of upside ahead in future years. I'm viewing MP Materials as a long-term investment to be held for at least the next 5 to 10 years. I encourage you to watch that video in its entirety so you know what's going on. Going back to NVIDIA, AI demand is still extremely strong based on what Alphabet told us on their earnings call. I think Meta will increase their CapEx guidance. Microsoft continues launching AI products, and Amazon is likely to report strong CapEx numbers as well given the massive rise in AI demand that we're seeing. I continue to be bullish on NVIDIA long-term, and I think this company will be worth much more in future years than it is today. At least that's my view of the situation. Remember to stay calm in this market. Remember to maintain a long-term perspective, and do not make any hasty or irrational decisions. With all of that being said, I hope you all have a great rest of the day, and I'm curious to hear your thoughts about NVIDIA in the comments below. Please leave a like on this video so more people will see it. And while you're down there, please consider subscribing. It's free, and you can always change your mind. Thanks for watching, and hopefully I'll see you in the next video.